Hello, very nice to be here. It's sorry to be a minute late. I did the thing that I was not supposed to do, which was close the computer lid, and everything went away. So I apologize for being here late. So we've been getting a lot of questions from a lot of people not in Mastering Alchemy, wanting to understand how is this working? What is this all about? I'm excited, I'm anxious, I'm nervous. What's going on with me? And I'm really concerned about what's going on in the world as I watch all this disruption, etc. I'm a spiritual person. I want to believe that there's something really exciting going on simultaneously. There is. There really is. So let me see if I can begin to address some of these questions that people are asking and explain kind of how this is all unfolding. And the interesting part, this is not new on one hand. On the other hand, it's really excitingly very new. So when you start to look at things, everything is about vibrations. Now, as soon as you say that, it sounds like we're going to talk about physics. Well, we are, but we're really talking about something much bigger. One of the things that happens is everything occurs in cycles. And these cycles you're really very aware of. It's, as simple as the morning turns into the afternoon, turns into the evening, the day turns into the month turns into spring, summer, fall, winter cycles. But there are so many more cycles that we don't pay attention to that are influencing everything that we do all the time. There's a cycle that is 60 years long. That really is generational. It's what we would call right now, which is very impacting at a very critical time of transition. You have baby boomers, the aged older folks. You have the Gen X's, you have the millennials, you have the Gen Z's. And the interesting part is really clear. None of them think quite the same. And what's important to one is not important to another. Then you have another cycle. That cycle's about every 60 years, that generational shift that begins to influence the entire direction of where everything is going. You have another cycle that's about 80 years long. And this one's really a big deal. This cycle begins to come about in such a way that it just changes everything in relationship to the world. So in the United States, you go back to the British-American War 240 years ago in 1840s. And 80 years later, you have the 1920s, two world wars effectively unfolding in that period of time. And here we are 80 years later, having a whole nother cycle. But the interesting part about this one is all these cycles are happening at one time. And so let me see if I can make sense out of that. When you take it to this physical level, you're watching the world around you in a state of disruption right now. You've had a lot of growth over the last 60 years, particularly, go back into the 1960s. And that growth happened exponentially. You had consumption occurring at a significant level. And we just consumed and consumed and grew and consumed. And to a great extent, that was because of this at the end of World War II, 80 years ago. We basically had this massive new population group come in, never been seen before. And it started wanting more and wanting more and wanting more. Worked out really well until it did not work out as well. And that's this period we're in right now. Massive consumption, not paying attention to unintended consequences. Garbage, nuclear waste, climate change, overextension of economics, the 1% owning 90% of the wealth. Very unintended consequences. So what does that have to do with your spiritual growth? Actually, everything. So we're in a place where each of us as an individual has a very significant opportunity to really kind of pause, reset themselves, and begin to observe the opportunities that are coming in this next set of cycles. So lately we've been asking a question, where are you? Now it's an interesting question because the response could be, in regard to what? Where am I in regard to what? Well, that question is really kind of valuable when you start to look at all of these changes and begin to access or assess, where am I? So where am I in regard to my physical state, health or location, life patterns? Where am I emotionally? Where am I mentally? Where am I spiritually? So this cycle that I'm not mentioning, we'll bring it in here, is this cycle of transition spiritually. Huge cycle. It's basically saying, in the most simple terms, the game that's been being played in this third dimensional reality, walking around as we all do in the human physical form, is coming to an end. Now, let me be really clear. That doesn't mean apocalypse. That doesn't mean the end of physicalness. Not at all. It simply means there's a transition coming. And in this particular transition, the game that we've been playing, this third dimensional consumption game, this third dimensional power over greed, domination, imposition upon others, something which seems to be the nature of this third dimensional game, is all coming to a completion. That doesn't mean life stops. It simply means this game where one not paying attention to another, it's time to begin to recognize that's not how this aspect of consciousness in all that is works. So we're actually starting to step into an opportunity, really kind of I could call it a golden age. I'm not sure what that actually means, but a time of wonder, a time of really amazing transition. And when you get right to the bottom of it, where am I in relationship to that shift? And then the second question is also, what do I want? And when we start to drop back into the what do I want question from the standpoint of where I am, where am I? And if you get really quiet and you just begin to ask yourself, what do I want? What would I like to experience in life? How would I like to engage with others? What's important to me? In that space, we don't normally get to pause long enough to answer that question because we're so much in motion, moving to and from, really in a belief system that everything that's happened in the past is what, in a way, is conditioning me at this moment. And the past is fixed, so I can't change any of that. But what if that was not true? What if your ability to start to recognize the past has aspects to it, components to it? The physical thing that happened, the event that happened. You're not going to change that. But how you get to look at that event and how you get to internalize it and how you get to recognize I can rearrange that whole event as it relates to me right now at this point. Where am I? And so this shifting time that we're experiencing, this process of beginning to recognize oneness, we'll call it consciousness. Consciousness is a state of being that you are conscious of becoming much more aware of consciousness. So we're in a shifting time. So let me back up a little bit and kind of set this in a little different frame here for this. We've been playing a game in this human form, third dimensional game. And in the process, our purpose, in a way, was to experience ourselves. This is why you, as a spiritual being, are here. Experience myself. And in the process of coming in and playing as that little child, excited, enthusiastic, bright, we began to ask the question of the mom, dad, teacher, minister of the world, how does this work? How did you do it? And what they very much told you is, this is what I know, and this is how it works, and this is the truth, and this isn't the truth, and you do this, you don't do this, this is good, this is bad, that is something you should do, and this is something you shouldn't do. All the constructs of how the 3D-dimensional game is played. And if you ever look at a little baby, you watch them and their eyes are bright and they're totally enthusiastic and they're full of life. Come back a year later, not quite so much so. Come back 2 years later, that brightness seems to be dulled out. Do you remember that? Dulled out. We began to listen to the mom, dad, teacher, minister and kind of move through this game based on what they told us is how it plays out. But right now, what's being presented is, when I begin to ask the question, where am I in relationship to my physical well-being, mental, emotional, spiritual space? Begin to take a look and ask, is this where I want to be? Now, this is where the game is pretty much getting exciting. If you begin to recognize that a lot of what I carry around in my belief system is not mine. Well, if it's not mine, whose is it? Well, it's really mom, dad, teacher, minister. And so, not making any of them bad, but this is how it works. And we went, okay. And then we also wound up not necessarily, in many cases, meeting their expectations, their wants, their desires, or stepping into their bad lifetime at one moment or another, where they basically said, there's something wrong with you. What's wrong with you? You're not doing that right. And you're not going to succeed. You're not doing it right. And what we did is internalize that into a place that said, I'm not okay. Now, one of the things about the third dimensional game is it really doesn't give you a lot of additional choices when what mom, dad, teacher, minister says is my truth, and I love my mom, dad, teacher, minister, so I'm going to follow along with what they said. But are you happy? And the simple piece of that one is, I'm doing what I was told to do, but I'm not doing what I want to do. And to a great extent, we get to a place where we stop asking, what do I want? And we definitely don't ask the question, where am I in relationship to what I want? And so as this shifting game begins to unfold, a lot of the who I am not is beginning to peel away and beginning to fall away. Now, that's pretty wonderful on one hand, and it's very challenging on another. Because as this cycle begins to move into a lot of light, a lot of brightness, a lot of awareness, we'll talk about in a moment, I'm starting to notice more and more about my uncomfortableness. And I'm getting uncomfortable. So those of you playing in Mastering Alchemy, you know this because it's kind of the space where you step into, how do I get rid of my baggage? See, so Mastering Alchemy is a instructional guidance program, kind of said, here, do this and notice what happens. Tools, skills, opportunities. But where we are right now is, you can't take that baggage with you into this next cycle. You can't take, I'm not okay, I don't deserve, I'm not smart, nobody likes me, poor me, it's my fault, I did it wrong. You know those places? So one of the things that's happening that makes what you're observing in this third dimensional game uncomfortable is a lot of the unintended consequences of the last 60, 80 years are all coming to the surface. Climate change. This is an interesting one because we all point to what the culprit is. It's not exactly the culprit. Oh, it contributes. Fossil fuels, carbon dioxide in the air, etc. But it's not the only thing in town. It's not the only thing causing this. There's a much bigger aspect of this game that's also causing this. And we'll get to it in a minute. It's the sun. It's the breaking down of the magnetic field around the Earth. It's this shift of consciousness. And so in this shift of consciousness, two things are happening. One is it's very disruptive, what we've been talking about. It's also extremely opportunistic. And so in the disruptive part, you're watching everything that is not yours, that does not align with the heart, does not align with well-being and joy and happiness and that excitement of life. All of that is leaving. It's simply unintended consequences of the game we've been playing as a spiritual being. And now it's time to go home, in a manner of speaking. You can't take your baggage with you. So as this portion of the cycle is unfolding, everything is dissolving. But the challenge is everything that's dissolving is what I know. It's how I live my life. It's the right and wrong and the good and the bad. It's all dissolving. The flip side, the other side, is we're moving into a massive opportunity of well-being. It's in this well-being. If I said to you, let's push everything material aside. If we just me and you, what do you want? What would make you experience yourself in joy, happy, well-being, laughter, appreciation, gratitude, kindness? I would like to have friends. I would like to co-create with others. All of a sudden, kind of out of your awareness, pops all of these things that I want. I would like to live a life of respect and dignity, kindness, joy, laughing, playing with others, simply enjoying myself. Now, that's not complicated, but that's not how we've been guided in the process of playing the game of 3D. But right here, two things are happening. One disruptive, one opportunistic. Opportunistic stuff we'll talk about in a second. Amazing, fascinating, really exciting stuff. But the disruptive stuff is what we usually pay attention to. So how do I get out of this? How do I begin to recognize I have choice? And see, this is partly where a couple of things come into play. So one of the things about many is we don't pay attention to ourselves. We don't pay attention, period. We also have a sense that it's not that urgent. I don't really have to do something about that now. In that 3D world that we grow up in, many people don't have good skill sets as to how to take care of themselves. And we kind of adjust and do what we were told and fit in. And are you living the life that you really want to be living? And generally, when I look around, most people are not living the life they want to be living. And so, do they have to stay there? No. Do they have choices to get out of that space? Yes. Are more and more choices being made available? Yes, this is part of this whole opportunity that's coming to everybody. Except what I seem to do is what I've always done. And I would like a different result, but I don't know how to do it differently. So I'm just going to keep doing what I've always done. That statement, that space, that choice is going to become very uncomfortable for the masses on the planet. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I know building my house on the edge of the ocean where the tide is rising is probably not a good idea, but I like the ocean, so I don't have to worry about that now. Well, how many decisions do we make like that? And so this whole shift is changing. The world is changing. But the piece that we have choice around and playing with is, how do I address my world from an emotional and mental standpoint? Thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. And so as this whole shift happens, there are a number of opportunities I mentioned a moment ago. So one of these opportunities is there's a level of light that is coming into your awareness. You are beginning to become conscious of being unconscious. I'm starting to notice more, and it's making me uncomfortable. I don't know what it's about, but it's making me uncomfortable. Many people will say, I'm becoming conscious of what's in my backpack, of all the ways I have followed the third dimensional game, but I didn't follow it on my terms. I did what I was told. I was told this is the truth. This is what to believe. This is how it works. You do this, you don't do that. And so what's coming to the surface is a lot of that belief structure that's not mine. And it's not, I don't know what to do. And I'm beginning to be more agitated. The average person on the street is saying, I don't know what to do. But it's coming out. And so, on one hand, it's not all coming to the surface to punish anybody. It's coming into the surface to be let go of. Now, those of you playing Mastering Alchemy, we'll talk about Mastering Alchemy in a minute. This isn't really a sale of Mastering Alchemy. This is just simply, there are other choices. So those of you playing in Mastering Alchemy, one of the things you know is a lot of this energetic is coming up. It begins to be an emotion. It begins to be a thought process. Why did they say that? Why did this happen? And then we linger in it for a longer period of time. But you've got tools. And what you can begin to realize is, as I move into present time, my ability to just simply, from a neutral place, look at this and recognize it's leaving. New piece of information for many. It's leaving. And if I don't grab a hold of it and I don't argue with it, you're going to find all of a sudden I don't remember what I was thinking about a couple minutes ago. I was upset a couple minutes ago, but I don't remember why I was upset now. It's leaving. It's all just pushing out of the emotional, energetic bodies. As we hold on to this third dimensional game, we give a lot of attention to thoughts and emotions, experiences. We're watching the world. We're upset with them doing that. But if you were to step back into present time right now, and you were to take a look at all the things you're holding your attention on, you're going to become stunned, because very, very little of those have anything to do with you at all. Nothing at all. Culture wars, politics, how those are taking money from others, racism over here. Not that it's good or bad, any of those things, not that they shouldn't be observed. But when I ask the question, what can I do about that event that I'm watching right there, the culture war event, for example? It has nothing to do with you. Now, can I vote? Yes. Can I make a comment? Yes. But how much of that do you run through your body? How much attention do you give to thoughts, events, experiences that you can do nothing about or have nothing to do with you? So it's all coming to the surface. all these experiences as you're watching, when you can kind of pull back and get into present time and I'm okay, and you just kind of watch, they're other people's movies. Everybody is trying to figure it out on the planet. It's other people's movies. And so as we begin to approach this, there's choices. One of those sets of choices to begin to notice what else is happening besides the disruption. And that's the opportunistic side. Really amazing things are happening. So from a spiritual standpoint, over the last number of years, couple of years, there's been a level of light, a level of consciousness that's being presented. It's there to be chosen. It's a set of thoughts and feelings to be chosen. So thoughts are electrical, emotions are magnetic. And so when you have a thought in 3D, a lot of times you say, I don't like that. Why did they say that? And then we start to, that becomes very magnetic. It's like, oh, I don't like this. And then we begin to think, and we begin to wrap that thought with more thought, that emotion with more thought. Why did they say that? Why did they say that? Why did they say that? That's how you build an electromagnetic field. And the more you put attention on, I'm not okay, why did they do that? The more that electromagnetic field begins to be a dominant attention point. And then it begins to have a life of its own. And it begins to sit in the nervous system, begins to sit in the emotional body, begins to wear you down energetically. It's not working, my life's not working, my life's not working. How many times have we said something like that? But over here, there's something that's beginning to change. And again, in Mastering Alchemy, it's a guidance, it's an instructional program to navigate a journey. That's it. There's no truth. There's no right or wrong. There's just a try this, what happens? One of the key pieces to that whole body of Mastering Alchemy is, would you like to know how to simply neutralize that electromagnetic field? How do I not give attention to this and short circuit it? Just simply remove that emotion. No tears, no wallowing in the event in the past. Just simply, does this have any value? Apply 8th ray, 4th, 5th, 6th ray, the color codes, the sound templates, the vibrational patterning, and remove it. It's like dust on the shelf. Let me say that again. All of that we're carrying around in the backpack is really nothing more than dust on the shelf once you stop saying it's all about I'm not okay. Clear it out. Not complicated. But once that begins to be cleared out, then we begin to get closer to that question, what do I want? Where am I in relationship to how I would like to live my life? Again, not complicated, except we haven't been told you can do this. Mom, dad, minister didn't do this. Look back. Do you want to live the life that they have said this is how it works? Now, are there people on the planet that are really happy and doing tremendous in that space? Absolutely. But I'm really kind of talking to each one of us here. Are you where you want to be? And what is my reference? How do I determine where I want to be? You can't do it through that lens of how you should live your life based on somebody else's terms. Do you have permission to begin to do what you want to do? Now, just ask yourself that. Could I take my clothes off and run down the street and yell, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy? Well, no, of course not. I can't do that because why? Why can't you do that? Because I don't have permission. Because the rules say, because they would get upset. But take a breath and just close your eyes and ask yourself, wouldn't that be fun? If you're still saying no, you're still playing in their game. Now, would it be fun? Maybe. Is it necessary? No, of course not. Do I have permission to do that? Could I do that? And if the answer is no, you're still in the experience of it's not okay. But once you get to the place where the answer is yes, I could do that. I have permission. You see, permission is one of those really interesting things, is we think everybody gives us permission. That's not correct. You have permission. You have always had permission. You are allowed. You always have the ability to allow yourself. But if you can't answer the question running down the street with my clothes off is yes, I could do that. I have permission to do that. I choose not to do that. I have permission to do that. Now you're beginning to get at the source of the ability to ask the question, where am I? What do I want? So let's just jump ahead and make a decision. What I want is to be happy, to be comfortable, to co-create, to laugh, to enjoy myself, to have respect, to have value with and others, to be able to create exciting things and enjoy my creation because I'm a creator being. If that sounds like something you would like, that's your natural state of being. You're a creator being. And so in that space of creation, do you have permission? Can you allow yourself? Now, this is the space where the opportunity to begin to play that in there, getting those answers, has been unfolding in the last couple of years. And we're just putting a label on it, a name on it. We're going to call it the octave. What an octave is in musical terms, you're able to jump 2 levels up above where you were and experience it in another frame, another vibrational field. This octave that's being presented is like stepping into the entryway of a grand theater. Now, just think back somewhere you've had the experience where you've gone to a party and you've stepped in and it was like, oh, wow, this is really great. Or you've stepped into a restaurant and the aroma and the smell is like, oh, this is going to be really good. Or you walked into a room and people were laughing and there was, or a great lobby of a theater and there was excitement. See, that's what this octave is. It's a vibrational configuration of light being presented that is all about you being able to experience you. Now it's expanding into other aspects of this, and particularly as you clear away that backpack, have less attention on what you did in 5th grade that nobody liked, or you did something that you were just simply trying to figure it out, but everybody else said bad. Shame on you. How dare you? You should be guilty. Whew, that's a whole lot of attention, energetics that get thrown into our space. It's like putting blankets all over you and then expecting you to be happy. So as that octave begins to be played in, as you begin to give permission to play in this expanding level of light, one of the really interesting parts is much of that I'm not okay begins to fall away. You see, there are certain truths in the universes, in the consciousness. Law of attraction, one of those truths. What I put my attention on, the universe says, will provide for you. And you're the creator being, so the universe, will simply give you what you ask for. But see, here the universe doesn't understand English, French, Spanish very well. It understands vibrations. Right where we started, vibrations. It understands the configuration of how you hold your thoughts and how you hold emotions, feelings, sensations. It simply says, show me the vibration you want, and I will, universe says, provide the framework for you to have the experience that you're asking for. Law of attraction. So as we begin to play in this space, this expansion, this octave, there is an electromagnetic field being created in the octave. The more you begin to play in that space, the more you begin to remember the heart, sacred heart, that alignment of who you are. Well, but we know who we are. What do you want? Happy, joy, excitement, pleased with myself, fun, laughter, respect, dignity, integrity, success. See, that's who you are, where you have forgotten who you are. It's not complicated. But as that third dimensional experience falls away, just like every season turns into a new season, every cycle turns into a new cycle, every experience begins to lend itself to utilization of your next experience, or simply recognizing that was fun, put it over on the shelf for another day. All the great experiences, you do that in an interesting way. You do it as the soul in something called the causal body. All of the great experiences that have been created in all the extensions of the soul are captured in the causal body. They're there. They're there for you to access. They're there for you to play in. They're there for you to remember. But that bag, that backpack here, that doesn't give me much opportunity to bring my attention into that causal body, that well-being, that sense of who I am. But this octave and the ability to begin to recognize I have permission to choose differently. I'll go back to Mastering Alchemy. I have tools and skills. I have enhanced awareness and ability. I begin to rewire myself. I begin to reassemble myself, because see, to play in this third dimensional game, I had to forget who I was. I had to forget who the creator was. It was all part of the game. And I was very successful, you might say. I forgot. It's time to remember. It's time to begin to bring your attention, pay attention to how we're playing this game. Now, do you have to do a lot to play here? No, not a lot at all. It has some, in the moment, one of the statements that becomes valuable is pay attention. Begin to pay attention. Now, that's not a parent saying pay attention in that third dimensional space. It's begin to be able to ask that question, where am I in relationship to myself? Right here, this aspect of my joy, happiness. So, and how do I remove that backpack so I can begin to play here? So this shifting, unfolding on both sides, third dimensional space being disrupted, just look around, you see that, and this fifth dimensional space, we'll call it well-being. Keep it one word, well-being, all that joy, happy, etc. Well-being. When I bring my attention over here, what happens is this octave begins to illuminate really all around me. I begin to actually forget a lot of those, forget, wrong word. I begin to release my attention point on I'm not okay. If you would just get happy, you just simply enjoy yourself. Go for that walk along the creek and look at the flowers. Just simply find the feeling I'm happy. I like me. What happens as soon as we go into that space of joy, it's lighter, it's looser, it's airier, and it doesn't hold very long. Because we're so used to looking over our shoulder at what's going to take this away from me. What's going to take this away from me? Now, do we do that consciously? No, it's all unconscious. See, this is the space where this disruption in the third dimensional space is really very valuable. It's simply saying, if you would bring your attention over here to well-being, we're going to assist you in disrupting all of the I'm not okay. Now, it happens in two ways. It happens is the moment you go into holding your attention in joy, happy, pleased with yourself, smile, just keep it that simple. I'm in a smile and I like me. That's it. I like me and I'm smiling. If you can hold on to that, an enormous amount of those attention points, and I didn't do it right, I should, how many times did you do a math problem in school and didn't get it right and went, oh, I'm so bad. What's wrong with me? Well, you just, that thought, that electromagnetic field, that punishment, that's still there. It didn't go away. See, when you think a thought doesn't go poof and go away. It always goes somewhere. It's an electromagnetic field. If you gave it a lot of punishment along with it, I'm bad, gee, I'm so stupid, I can't make this work, nobody's going to like me, that makes that electromagnetic field pretty intense. So you get, let's call it two layers. One is just the, oh, I didn't do it right. That's still there. But the minute you go into I like me, I'm pleased with myself, there's a smile for no good reason, just because you can. An awful lot of that level that's just there on the shelf, dust, begins to go away. It's the other ones that have a little bit of an opportunity to rethink or refocus. And so the simplest answer I can give you, which is simply, it's leaving. Something comes up and we go, why is that there? I thought I was done with my divorce 25 years ago. And then we argue with it. If you just recognize, wow, thank you very much, it's leaving. It's just simply coming up to leave. If you can begin to create an alignment of yourself, an amazing amount of that backpack will go away. Let me hold on a second. I need to figure out where I am here. Good. So we're in transition. And this space that I want to also talk about is, as you can begin to move into this space of choice, as you start to recognize this is all falling apart and leaving, and I mean it's simply all leaving, and it's all about you. It's all about me. It's the energetics that I give attention to, the thoughts, the emotions, that I then empower. If I would recognize that this has very little to do with me in my walking around day to day, moment to moment, second to second space, what begins to happen is those attention points are also all dissolving. Beginning to move into the heart space in this octave. Now there's two more pieces of this transition in this spiritual space that's presenting opportunity. The quieter you can get, simply recognizing that much of this is falling away. I'm fine, I like me, I'm smiling, and I'm enjoying this moment. See, we have a tendency to just float through moments. We don't pay attention to the moment. The moment just happens, and then the next moment happens, and then it's time to go to bed, and then it's time to get up, and then it's 4 days later. If you just pause right here and ask yourself, what did you do yesterday? And you had 24 hours. How much of that 24 hours can you remember? Generally, it's not much. It passed through the day. But as this energy begins to, as you begin to move into the space of paying attention, there is a lot of gifts that are coming along the way. And it's as if we're on this moving sidewalk. This is accelerating. As you get into present time and you begin to observe these gifts, we'll call them, these choices, these opportunities are starting to present. There's more and more light that's coming into the game, and there's an aspect of consciousness that's beginning to present in such a way that you are remembering yourself. It's an intelligence that is beginning to engage with each of us, kind of saying, look over here, look over there. Well, here's an answer to that question. Now, there's another truth that I've experienced in consciousness, is that the answer lies where the question is asked. But for the most part, humans are too busy moving. We're in motion. We ask the question before we get done asking the question. We've already moved away from the question. I'm going to go look for the answer. I'm going to move away from myself. But as you begin to get quieter in this space that's now illuminating, this octave and more light coming in, this intelligence in consciousness is starting to become conscious to you, to me, to each of us. We're beginning to become more conscious of being conscious. Now, a couple minutes ago, I said we're also becoming more conscious of being unconscious. Both are correct. All of a sudden, that what's in my backpack, I didn't like that, those memories are starting to rise to the surface. I'm becoming conscious of what I didn't want to look at. On the other hand, I'm beginning to become conscious of how to engage, how to navigate, how to process. And I'm beginning to be more conscious of myself as a spiritual being. That's what this light is all about. Spiritual being. See, spiritual, everything other than physicalness, there is no 3-dimension. There is no bad, I'm not okay, I don't deserve. All that doesn't exist. That's just part of this game, this movie that we're playing in. But outside of this little space called 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, let's just label it for the moment, keep it simple, well-being is all there is. That nature of oneness with consciousness is that joy, excitement, expansion, creation, possibility, allowing, respect, dignity. See, that's who you've always been. So how do I get from the backpack to this heart space in a manner that I do it without having to constantly be drawn back into disruption? So this moving sidewalk that we're playing on is presenting lots of choices. But in the process, let me now talk Mastering Alchemy a little bit, because that's where a lot of the questions came from in the first place to do this, is I'm beginning to be aware that I have choice. Now, we think we're always aware that we have choice. We're not. We mostly play in a space of past and future. Just think about it. My past is what's created me, and I'm hoping for the future, or I'm worrying about the future. And a lot of times that worry is just something that's created from the past. And so we're back and forth unconsciously of that past and future space. But as you begin to recognize choice happens in present time, you can't choose in the past, and you can't choose in the future. The future isn't here. The past doesn't exist. There's only now. You've heard that forever and ever. But in that truth, now, I have choice. I don't have choice, past or future. So in this space of choice, how would I like to choose? As that begins to be more grounded, begin to get into the center of your head, begin to recognize that you have space. Oh, we've said that forever. I know, well, I have a space. But what is that? Do you know where it starts and stops? It's not exactly true, but for the purpose, right at the edge of the aura, if you were able to really define that space, this is me, and everything on the other side of that is Shakespeare's theater to entertain me, that would be a very different way of looking at life. But the minute you can begin to recognize this is me, I have space here. I also have tools. I can define this space in such a way that I can basically say, this is mine, stay out. It's not a wall, it's not protection, it's not demand. It's just simply says, this is mine. It's not to be interfered with. You create an alignment with that, and you just simply keep the other energy out. Not complicated. It's a part of who you are. It's not something to learn. It's something you've always been. But as you begin to get to that place of recognizing then that a lot of the I'm not okay is not mine, tools to basically clear that out. You start to rewire yourself. See, to play this game, you had to take yourself apart. That's a whole nother story. It's really fascinating. But would you like to put yourself back together? There's an aspect of that mental and emotional body, for example, that we keep calling two bodies. It's not two bodies. It's one body that's been separated. But when you put it back together, the ability to observe something and then choose the thought and choose the feeling that you attach to what you're looking at is conscious, not reactionary. There's an aspect of you you've turned off that is really valuable when it turns back on, called the Eye of Horus. That Eye of Horus is what puts all of your spiritual abilities, your psychic abilities. Everybody's likes that concept of psychic abilities, when you like to be able to see, hear, feel. You got all these 18, 20 different psychic abilities not being used for the most part, available. But this Eye of Horus is something in the head, in the brain, in the chakra structures that allows you to use all of those skills at one time as knowingness. You get quiet, observe. I know what the answer is. So it's in this space that you begin to remember yourself. It goes on from there. You start to rewire yourself in such a way where you play in that 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th chakras, particularly. A lot of information in those chakras. Begin to rebuild that light body. Very valuable creation. It's a integrated circuitry. It's not a body, but it's an integrated circuitry that allows you to begin to access all those bodies. The mental, emotional body, the etheric body, what most people call sleep space, the astral body. Etheric body would be more correct, and it is so much more than just what you do in your sleep space. That mental, emotional body, the causal body I mentioned earlier, the oversoul, the higher self, all of that starts to work as a unit in the heart. So this transition that we're in right now is really moving from that third dimensional game that we've been playing, beginning to remember, and that's what we're doing. We're remembering, although two things are happening. One is I'm not liking what I'm remembering. And the other side is, can you hold your attention on all of this fascination that's coming about, this level of light? Can you get quiet enough to just simply ask a question and allow the answer to present itself? No work required, not complicated. It's just different than how mom, dad, teacher, minister told me the game was played. For so many right now, we're waking up. We're just becoming more conscious. All this is happening, but it's time to wake up. It's time to remember. It's time to ask that question, where am I? Now, it's not where am I as I'm lost, it's where am I in relationship to why I'm here? What is my purpose? What am I creating? What do I want? When you begin to shift into that space of asking that question, not from where am I and looking at the guilt and gee, I did this and I did that and they blamed me for this and it was my fault. See, that's noise. That's stuff in the backpack. It's simply noise. If you ask yourself, does it have any value to me right now? The guilt, the blame, the anger, the resentment, the cutting somebody off and not just disowning them, I'm not going to talk. Does it have any value now? And for the most part, the answer will be none at all. All of a sudden, you start to realize, boy, I've got a lot more opportunity here. You've heard this statement, you're in the world, but not of the world. A lot of meaning when you realize I'm here physically, mentally, emotionally. I'm playing a game. It's not my game. Simply not my game. I'm in the world, but I'm not of that world that you're watching. TV, Fox News, CNN, push, shove, culture wars, economics, all that money over here. I don't have any over here. Not your game. Simply not your game. And so as you begin to get into this space of observing where am I in relationship to your spiritual space, your mental emotional space, all of a sudden that illuminated light begins to be very present. The opportunity to just shift. Effortlessly? No, some assembly required here. It's ridiculously simple, but it's not necessarily easy. And it's because that rational mind keeps wanting to argue. Don't you remember what they told you? You got to do it this way. Well, there begins to be a discussion with the rational mind that just says, look, you sit over here. I'm just going to go play on the swings. I'm going to try that out and see what it's like, you say. And the rational mind says, well, okay, well, but watch out, beware. That's okay. Just sit over here, you say to the rational mind. And you enjoy the swings, the slide, building sandcastles. All of a sudden it's like, wow, that was fun. Rational mind says, well, yeah, okay, this time. And then it'll argue and argue. But it's the transition that is in the process here. So as you get quieter in this space, these tools begin to have application. You begin to remember yourself, rewire, reassemble, know yourself. It's time. It's time. That's what is happening on the planet. We're moving to the end of a number of cycles all simultaneously. Very disruptive in the physical world on one hand. Remarkable things are being presented in the physical world simultaneously. Remarkable. There is a massive change that is going to happen all at once. All at one time. Over the next 5 years, 7 years, what happens in 2030, just as a point in discussion, not a significant point. If we could go to that point right now and look back today, you will be stunned. The speed, the change, the shift in technology, the shift in knowledge, the shift in longevity, the shift in health. Remarkable. And at the same time, the disruption of what has been is simply going to happen that fast also. So how do you position yourself? Where am I? What do I want? Well-being over here, just one word, well-being. What does it mean? Happy, joy, ease, laughter, co-creation. I like me, not complicated. Over here, letting go of all of the noise, all of the other people's energy, the truths of mom, dad, teacher, minister, which may work for them, but those that don't work for you aren't yours. Those that you have accepted and work real well for you, those are yours. I learned something to enjoy myself. So I've said a lot of things. There is a lot of questions, but what's going on was the topic of the morning, and how do I navigate it? So let me come to a stopping place and see if any of that made sense. If you heard something new, if you have questions, let's kind of play there for the next little period of time. I'm really interested in wanting to have this awareness that there are two things going on. Something disruptive, not destructive. It's just being disruptive. It's creating an opportunity, a permission to simply let go of things that don't support you. And over here, this level of light that's coming into your awareness is astonishing. And as you get quieter and quieter and you begin to sit, it's like looking into a picture that begins to illuminate and expand and goes deeper and deeper. And all of a sudden you're in it and it surrounds you. It's really exciting. Transitioning from where you have been to where you are and what's possible within where you are. Very remarkable what's happening. So with that, let me stop and turn this over to Roxanne, and let's see if I can answer some of your questions.
Okay, Jim, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, perfect. I love it when the technology works. So
always works. There's never any problem with it. We're laughing because I pushed the computer lid down right at the time of starting and shut everything down. Fortunately, I have Roxanne.
And Vita. Vita was
And
very
Vita.
helpful on this
Yes.
one, a lot. So I have questions, Jim, that people actually posted in our online community, plus they emailed, and then I have questions from people here in YouTube. So you all in YouTube have priority, and then if I need to fill in, I'll fill in with the other ones. Let's see, this first one is from Gail in British Columbia in level 2. As I stay in happy and the octave, what is the best way to be respectful each day of the 3D people in my life who are not navigating the shift with ease?
Yeah, great question. So it's all about you and you being respectful to them. So because you're finding happy, because you're finding an alignment, you're beginning to find yourself, you are starting to have the ability to choose how to engage with old patterns. And in simple terms, I'm choosing no longer to play that game. The flip side of that is recognize that at the same time you're breaking up your side of the game, you're breaking up their side of the game. It takes two to play a game. And if the game has been throwing rocks at one another and you just decide I'm going to stop throwing rocks, the other person gets interrupted, doesn't know what to do. So on one hand, that's good. But on the other hand, it's like, well, wait, and they'll argue with you. No, you need to throw more rocks. That's how we play this game. So the place there is be able to say in a lot of ways, we're not nice to one another, and that's not fun. And I'm really wanting to change this out. And I would like to be able to enjoy you like I once enjoyed you if it's a relationship issue. And I would like to have us begin to have more time together where we enjoy ourselves and grow. Now, that's a relationship piece with somebody intimate. There's people all around you that are going to fall away from your experience. So kind of three things happens when you play at Mastering Alchemy and you start to identify yourself in the games that you play and you realize, I don't want to play these games. So a lot of people that you engage with as associates, you just engage with them because they're there and I need something to do. But as you begin to align yourself, give to yourself, find happy for yourself, begin to like yourself, it's not fun hanging out with those people anymore. So one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to lose some of your friends or associates, let's call them. You elevate your attention into joy. They're still over here doing what they're doing, what you used to do. There's a mismatch. So that's one of the things that happens, or two of the things, relationship and that intimate relationship and just general. You're also going to have a surprising thing that happens as you start to get happy, you start to laugh, you start to smile, you end your throwing energy at other people type of thing. There are going to be people who are going to come up to you and say, well, I don't really want anything, but can I just rub up against you because I would like to know what you know. How is it that you're all of a sudden so nice to be around? Expect that. That happens often. And then there's a third group of people here, and quite often these are relationships. Mom, dad, teacher, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, and long time engagements with one another. And one of the things that happens there is it's like, do you really, you hear people say this all the time. It's like, well, I have to go home for Thanksgiving. I'm going to go home for Christmas. Do you want to go home? No, it's terrible. I never have a good time. They're always arguing. So why go? But that's family. One of the things that happens is you begin to be brighter and brighter in that grouping of people that you have relationship with, came into this body with. All of a sudden, they are not happy with you. And what they're really saying is, I want to be where you are so significantly. I want joy. I want happy. I want what you have. But I'm so wrapped up in my he said, she said that I just can't get there. And so I would rather kill you off than hang out with you, is what they're kind of saying. Now, they're angry because they want that joy that you're beginning to demonstrate. And they're in so much of their own pain and restriction. Now, one of the things, so you just hear that and just pause for a moment. But one of the things happens as you go through more of this work into starting to understand how to manage energy, how to change vibrations, how to basically change the whole energy of a room, energy of a conversation. All of a sudden you start to begin to say hello to them in a little different way to where they start to absorb that light that you hold. Now, does it happen simply and easily to that kind of situation? No, it takes a little bit of time, but you're going to find that the game changes and you get happier. And if you can allow people to be where they are, many of them are going to start to gravitate to you where you are, because that's what they want also.
Oh, that's my cue to ask a question.
The end.
I never know when you're finished, like pause, pause, pause. Okay, here is a question from J8. Does this shift have a correlation to the solar flares?
Yes, it does. So have just notice, I'm talking to everybody about everybody. Begin to be aware of yourself, your emotions, your moods, some of those things. The solar flares, and we've just had two very big ones simultaneously with a super moon, when the moon's the closest to the Earth this last couple of days. Huge emotional waves of energy get affected because this electromagnetic field around the Earth is being changed, being pulled on. We've already lost if you have any illusion that the North Pole is in the North Pole place in the South, get over it, because those poles have moved dramatically. They don't exist in the North Pole and where they were as you think they are in the maps. The sun is going through a very significant change, and it's affecting the magnetic field of the Earth dramatically. Well, a little while ago, we said thoughts are electrical and emotions are magnetic. And so you're watching the magnetic frame of how thoughts are constructed and held together is all changing. If I was to take it, it's like watching the pixels on your computer screen just change slowly. But if you sit and you watch it for a little time, all of a sudden the whole imagery begins to change. You're changing. We are moving into a state of new humans. Now, hear that positively and not fearfully. The level of humanity is in change. This level of consciousness that is presenting itself is basically saying you're going home. We're reconstructing the game of 3D into a game of full awareness in the heart. Consciousness is going to be played out more fully. Is that going to happen next week? Nope. But the magnetic fields are altering this whole shifting of the atoms and the molecules in your body, as well as the emotional field and thought process. The end.
Thank you. Chip, this one is from Maggie. So many people I know are feeling depressed and restless/irritable, like they do in the winter here in the Midwest. Is this part of the shift?
Same answer as I just said. It's really right now very much directly related to these emotional, these magnetic changes, but they're all only expanding, they're not contracting. And so the answer is yes to the question. The second question is, how do I get out of that? How do I get away from that? So this level one piece of work, and what I just alluded to a little while ago, we call it the rose, putting the rose right at the edge of the aura and starting to create an electromagnetic field within that aura that is not as affected by the thoughts of other people and the emotions of other people and these magnetic shifts on the with the coronal mass ejections. So beginning to pay attention, and I'll use that word again, and starting to ask, how do I recreate myself in such a way that I'm able to navigate through these transitional times, kind of in my own little bubble with a level of consciousness expanding to where I have better choices than I've had in the past. Mastering Alchemy, that's all I can say. That's a whole instruction of how do I do this. And again, it's not a truth, it's not a cult, it's not do this because that's the only answer. There is no only answer. Would you like to be able to recognize a whole set of different choices, and then when applied, notice that the results are different than what you're used to? So that level 2 of Mastering Alchemy particularly is about beginning to recognize, how do I clean out that backpack? How do I rewire myself? How do I begin to recognize there's more choices than I've had before?
Jim, someone made a comment here on YouTube that I thought was interesting. They said, what I feel is my truth.
What I feel is my truth is literally a correct statement. What I emotion is my physical truth is not a correct statement. Now, let me make sense of that. So when you think about anger, rage, resentment, jealousy, judgments, there's emotion to those and there's an edge to those. But when you come over here to a feeling, because people ask the question, what's the difference between emotions and feelings? Feelings don't have edges. Gratitude, appreciation, kindness, respect, dignity, enjoyment, no edges on those. You might also notice that when you put your attention on those words, those alignments of feelings, you don't hold them very long. And the reason you don't hold them very long is the physical body is in this physical 3D game. The rules, the structures, the box of the game board called 3D has limitations, right, wrong, has emotions. It's built on emotional constructs. So all the joy is in that fifth dimensional space, where emotions a lot of times resonate very comfortably or uncomfortably in the third dimensional space. So when I feel is my truth, great statement. But when I emote, when I am in motion, energy in motion, and I have edges attached to it, that's not my truth. Now, just hear that and see if that's correct for you. So the piece of the information is emotions, feelings have no edges. Emotions have edges. Now, hear that not as the truth. It's not perfectly correct, but it is a very good reference space to begin to ask yourself, what am I doing right this minute? What am I in? Feelings or emotions?
Here's a comment from Yvonne. Every day I learn little by little that I'm valuable to be happy. Why? Birds and trees are naturally happy. It's like I'm living life in reverse.
Well, you're living life in a game that you came here to play, and you have purpose. We can talk about that at another time. But this purpose is you are a creator being coming into a game that has a very uniqueness to it. And to a great extent, it has rules and structures, and it has something very unique, and that is, I'm talking to all of you, you pushed your way to the front of the line. And when the creator said, we're going to go play a game and it's a new game, and you said, send me. And the creator said, well, let me explain this. You said, I don't care, send me. And the creator said, well, let me explain anyway. You're going to forget who I am. You're going to forget who you are. You're going to put a bag over your head, and you're going to dive down into this energy that is really unfamiliar, emotion, and thoughts that are disconnected all the time. And you're going to wallow around that, and you're going to find your way back. And you went, hot damn, send me. This sounds really great. How deep can I go? And the creator sat back and said with a smile, knock yourself out. And you said, watch this. And then you forgot. And here we are wallowing around in all of that, exactly what was said. But we're at the end of the game. The games are going on for a long time, but we are at the end of the game. And so transition in this space. And if you can just hear that and allow that to be kind of an amusing possibility, can you ask yourself, where am I in relationship to this game? Am I closer to going and showing the creator how great I did? Or am I simply going to continue to wallow around and go, it's their fault, I'm not okay, I don't deserve, there's nothing right with me? Choose is the answer.
Jim, this one is from Denny, who's in level 4. Sometimes during a meditation in your classes, the celestial choir becomes very prominent. Where is the music coming from, or what realm or dimension?
Well, it's easier to say it is you recognizing you. You just keep that really that simple. It's not, see, once we start to try to label it, where is it? We're trying to put it into a location. Consciousness doesn't function in location. Story for another day. But basically, it's a layer of consciousness that has a combination of vibrations and frequencies and colors and sounds. And you said, assemble this in this fashion. And there it was. There it is. And so in your particular alignment, as you start to get into these different layers of consciousness, let's just call them for references, a familiar layer of consciousness to you as a spiritual being is the celestial realms and the great combination of sound, we call music, if you would, that begins to present itself. Oh, and it's extraordinary because it's beyond anything you can mentally, third dimension, physical body, even begin to grasp. But good for you. You have access and recall into that configuration. A lot of people have access and recall into those configurations. They never ask. Or more specifically, and really understand this statement, pay attention. It's not a directive, a command. It's simply pay attention. Now, how do you pay attention? I get quiet, I get into present time, and I don't wander. Because once I ask a question and the answer lies where the question is asked, there it is. And that whole configuration of the answer is a state of consciousness. Now, can I bring more of my attention into that state of consciousness? Yes. Can I begin to wrap myself in this state of consciousness? Yes. How many times do you get lost in a thought? And you're just sitting there and all of a sudden you're in a thought, and you're in a thought, and then you pull yourself out of the thought. But while you were in the thought, you were completely unaware of anything else going on. There's no difference. But what happens is you get very much in present time and you hold your attention in that thought. And there you are. Same thing happens here in these layers of consciousness that are available to you, but they're not available to you when you're in that third dimensional box, the game board of the third dimension, the physical space we're playing. That electromagnetic field of disruption and good, bad, right, wrong is so strong in the earth plane and so many other planes related to 3D that the question I asked earlier, why can't you hold happiness for longer? Because this is so intense, you get pulled back into it. So, and the intenseness is directly related to the belief that the only game in town is linear time. Past, present, future, you die. That's all there is to it. Time. That's it. Period. End of discussion. That's not correct. There are 5 different configurations of present time. And when you start to bring your attention into this alignment and recognize, I'm not going to play in linear time, stepping out of time, changing the focus of time, not complicated. Level 2, beginning to play there, you realize I can hold this spot and hold my attention in those celestial choirs, if you'd like. So good for you that you have that recall and recognition of yourself.
Jim, here's a comment from Georgina. I feel it's a time to be in quietness. I do not feel like traveling or visiting or being with a lot of other people.
Yeah, a lot of people are getting there, and a lot of baby boomers are getting there because they've done all the game of 3D to a great extent, and now they're finding themselves, kind of at the ending point of the life cycle and recognizing I don't need a whole lot of other things. But at this particular point in this life cycle where I don't need a lot of other things, we have a lot of things we can tell you about this concept of death. And one of them is, and without going into it, death is not what you think it is. Death is not what you've been told it is. Well, that's pretty out there. But what if I'm correct? What if there's a whole nother way of beginning to recognize death? Now, to that point, Georgina, is if you've ever been around somebody, and I've had this opportunity 6 times, like right there in my hands, gone. They were here a minute ago, they're not here anymore. At that last 10 seconds, last 30 seconds of 4 out of the 6 of them, it was like, oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, it's so remarkable. What if you didn't have to leave the body to find that space? And so what a lot of Mastering Alchemy is about is not focused on that, but what you learn is, can I simply put myself into that space? The answer is yes, I can. Just such extraordinary beauty and vibration and joy, because it's That's who you are. All you're doing is recognizing yourself in consciousness. And sometimes it requires getting quiet, getting out of all of the distractions and the attention points of earlier in my life. The end.
Hold on, Jim. Sorry, there's a lot going on here. Just give me a second here. Okay, I have a conversation going between 2 or 3 people, and they're discussing physical changes that they've noticed, and head migraines, heart things going on. And their question is it related to the magnetic shifts and the solar flares?
Yes. I'm going to say yes more strongly than I'm going to say to other people's definition of that. Oh, it's ascension symptoms, people would call that. Used to be, good 80s, 90s, early 2000s conversation. It's not ascension symptoms on one hand. It is very much this whole magnetic transition. Now, it's when you change 1 pixel on the screen is not where it was any longer. And what you're watching is there's an acceleration. That's not correct. There is a transformation that's occurring that's allowing you, let's say you have 10 screens all lined up. They're all shifting. Some are shifting very slow, some are shifting much quicker. What you have available to you is which screen do you want to look at? It's not so much one linear time that's moving through time. It's simply all of the screens are changing, some faster, some slower, some more impacted by the electromagnetic fields, the solar flares. Every screen is being changed. Some people, where they are, go back 20, 30 years, used to hear people talk about how crazy other people get on full moons. Magnetic field shift. So gravity shifts, similar things. And so, but right now there's an acceleration in all of this change. We're moving to a rapid transition from one to another. I mean, it's like the day fall starts from summer is very different than the day winter starts from fall. Very different. But where we're playing here as humans, all of that is going on simultaneously. And so some people are being affected more so by others, if that makes any sense.
Jim, here's a question from Annalie. I'm in my heart space and it's wide open and clear. It's full and nothing is missing. However, sometimes my brain is completely switched off while in my heart, I'm fully conscious. I feel like I want to explore something, but I don't know what that something is.
So if you are playing in Mastering Alchemy, there's something we just played with this the other day. We'll play with it again in the next pathway session, is that space where I'm grounded, I'm in the center of my head, I'm on my side of the rose, and now I'm going to move my attention to an expanded space into the higher mind. Now, when you move from the center of your head into the higher mind, it gets quieter. There becomes a focus without any real intention to it. It's just tighter focus. A curiosity begins to play in that space, and a number of other little configurations. But at that point, you begin to bridge the ability to think and feel. There's a merging into the Sacred Heart. So the Sacred Heart thinks. Rational mind thinks also, but when you start to get into the higher mind alignment, operating the physical body from the higher mind merged with the Sacred Heart, the thinking begins to happen in the heart. And so it's a think and a feel and a management of yourself on your side of the rose in this very joyful clarity that is different than trying to think in the rational mind. It's the place where you'd go for a walk and you're happy, and you're just all of a sudden talking to the trees, and you're talking to the bunny rabbit, and you're saying hello to the birds, and you're pleased with yourself, and you're very clear and present. That's talking from the heart. Now, can you put together a complex quantum physics conversation in that space? Yes. It doesn't have to be going to the rational mind to do mental thinking. The heart thinks really significantly. And for those who are playing in Mastering Alchemy, and you've been hearing us talking about this intelligence, this knowledge, this wisdom that is now starting to be presented from consciousness. We're going to call consciousness all that is. We're going to call consciousness God, Allah, Supreme Being, Creator. All that is consciousness without labels. And that consciousness is presenting itself to you, where you are beginning to ask questions. How does this work? But again, it goes back to being in that higher mind, heart space, quiet, present, and observant, recognizing the answer lies right where you ask the question. Not complicated. However, the rational mind jumps in and goes, oh, wait, that's too much. Did he say this first, or that's the rational mind? Go for a walk, talk to the birds, enjoy yourself, and then think from the heart.
Jim, I just noticed we're over 90 minutes and we have at least 3 more questions. Do you want to keep going?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this one is a follow-up from the conversation that's going on online about heart. It's mostly heart and headache issues happening because of the solar flares. This is from Catherine. Even if this is caused by solar activity, what should they do? Referring to people who are not connected to Mastering Alchemy and don't have the tools. What should they do? Traditional medical route?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say, if you have any real doubts at all, go to the doctor. Yep, really simple. And what I say to people playing in Mastering Alchemy is sit down with yourself for a moment and ask, is this something that is a challenge to me and I need to go to a doctor? Now, that's not a rational mind question. It's just simply an observational question. Let me just sit here for another minute and see if I am okay. There's a place where that heart space will say, this is a physical issue. You want to go to the doctor. There's other places where it's a growth period. There's other places where it's an impact from the magnetic fields. There's going to be a lot of confusion going forward because people are going to be convinced that I have something wrong, and they're going to go to the doctor, just like they have many other times for people playing Mastery Alchemy. Doctor says, nothing. I can't find anything. Everything shows it's doing fine. And then we as humans want to argue with the doctors, like, wait, all this is going on. So it's something for you to figure out. How do I wish to play with this? But to a great extent where you're able to even ask that question versus the average person on the street, your capacity to sit back a little bit. And my suggestion would be ground the energy. You know, that grounding cord from the tip of the spine to the center of the earth isn't something you're creating. It's something that's always been there that many people have just never paid any attention to. So, and for people asking a question, and if they're not involved in Mastering Alchemy, go take level 1. It's a not expensive course. It's got massive amount of information, but if nothing else, it teaches you how to recognize yourself in an assembly. I'm grounded. I'm in the center of my head. What is the center of my head? Who else is in the center of my head? Because there's a lot of people who think they know better to run your body than you do. Mom, dad, teacher, minister. And I can define my energetic field at the edge of the aura. If you can understand that and begin to master that lots of things change. If you go to the next step, there's that octahedron that also is around you, four-pointed pyramid on the top, four-pointed pyramid on the bottom. That's been there forever, but it's been forgotten completely in the process of playing the game. Reconstruct it. Now I begin to have an antenna in place that allows me to engage with my consciousness, that aspect of the higher mind. Simple pieces of let me construct myself, let me put myself mechanically back together at a simple level that allows me to begin to rearrange that energy that's just flowing through me. I mean, think about it from the standpoint of how many times do you get upset with something somebody says? How many times you get upset when you walk into a room and everybody's angry, and not at you, but they're all angry and your mood changes? All that is saying is I allow other people's emotional field to interfere with mine. And many of you are empaths, and so you empathetically say, what is that person over there thinking, feeling? And then you put your finger right in it, in a matter of speaking, and you become the effect of what's going on in their space. Empathy. Once you begin to build that structure, that rose at the edge of the aura, and start to become masterful with it, and I say that to all playing and mastering alchemy, you want to ask your question, how masterful are you at playing with the rose? Or is it something you just decided, oh yeah, I know all about that, and moved on? Because it's worth going and revisiting in all of this magnetic field change. Upgrade your rose in simple terms. So,
Jim, I have one person online here and another one who emailed with a similar question. And I know we don't give medical or financial advice, and you have a lot of information about the old systems that are crumbling. So could you talk, without getting into the long end of it and without giving advice, could you talk about some of the institutions that are falling apart?
all of them. I'm not being funny. All of them. So just pause and ask yourself, just looking at the systems, is the legal system work? Is the political system work? Is the monetary system work? Is the healthcare system work? Educational system? The answer is no. And so let's just take one as a, so we have done nothing in education. Now that's not fair to some of the education, but basically we have simply modified an educational system that was built on reading, writing, and arithmetic. And the only reason that system was built was because Henry Ford had to teach people how to create an assembly line process to build cars. That's a true statement. Carnegie basically built the educational system to create mass production. We have done very little to change. Now, that's in the process of changing dramatically, and there's a massive amount of pushback. So if you look at, there are great intended teachers in the system. Are they allowed to even teach what they're able to, what they want to teach? And then you've got a system right now that's all of a sudden beginning to say, oh, well, we don't like the books that are being taught. Now, you can just see everything crumbling from that point on. But let me just point to the positive side of this. So without going into this, artificial intelligence, new buzzword, it's astonishing. It's going to change everything. But there's one developer called Stability AI that has built a laptop, built an iPad, and on a 2 gigabyte chip, basically allows everything to be there without going through the internet. They went into a place called Malawi in Africa, and they went into the refugees camps, and this artificial intelligence laptop basically is an education that in the language of the people in the refugee camp, they basically went to 3 and 4 and 5 year olds, have no education, zero. And they gave them the laptops. And they started playing the games in the laptop, and the game would teach the kid, and the kid would teach the game, and it would go back and forth, back and forth. In 18 months, 5-year-olds gained 4 grade levels in their own language with just the laptop. In a refugee camp, 5-year-olds. If you take that and you begin to put that into the educational system worldwide, which is less than 3 years away, you just destroyed the whole educational system as we've known it, but you've also just changed the entire game of how education works. Many of you are aware of ChatGPT. ChatGPT was given to the world as kind of a beta test to say, what can you do with this? It was free. Within 6 weeks, over 100 million people were using ChatGPT, an entire educational overall. Now take that into politics, take that into education. Take that into legal affairs, take that into accounting. Every system is broken way beyond the point of re-establishing it. And here comes the new technologies. Now, right here, I'm going to suggest, don't argue with, is AI good or bad? Is it going to destroy? Is it going to create? It's an irrelevant conversation. It is going to both create massive disruption. Oh, there's that word again. Massive disruption. It's going to be very unpleasant in many ways. It's going to do some very disruptive things that are not going to be make people happy. And at the same time, on the back end of it, you have a whole new humanity. And I don't mean chips in people's heads. I'm not going there at all. I mean reorganizing everything that's broken into a manner that basically says, what do you need to live your life happy? So hope that kind of directs the answer.
Okay, Jim, let's let this be our last question. This is from another Yvonne. Can you navigate the shift without meditations?
Let's define meditation. So to a great extent, meditation, here's another one, the same question, same as the previous answer. What is meditation? It is an old practice, very valuable, very much aligned with becoming quiet, present, and aware, conscious. Many people have a sense of meditation. And if you think about how do you meditate, you do the exact same thing over and over. It's like, okay, I'm going to meditate. And then you go, where are you? Here's that question again. Where are you? Where are you in relationship to why you're calling this meditation? And so we sit there, we wander, we go into problem solving, all of those kind of things. So what if we changed the word meditation to quiet, present, and aware, and curious? Now, curious doesn't mean here, as I said, in the higher mind. Curious is just simply really a very quiet place, and you say, well, I wonder how that works. You're not really, I need to get an answer. You're not thinking, you're not processing lots of thought. You're just simply wondering. And if you can sit there in that wondering space, the answer will arrive. Now, what if this new aspect of light, intelligence, knowledge, wisdom, consciousness engaging with you at a point of interface? What would that interface be? Now, if it's meditation as you've defined, a person has defined meditation, which has been very valuable in spiritual growth over the last 5,000 years or so, 12,000 years more precisely, we've been talking about cycles this whole session. Is what was a truth 12,000 years ago the same truth today? Is the weather at fall and summer day one the same as the weather at fall and winter day one? No. Is one good or bad? No. But is it in present time while we've defined meditation? And please understand, I'm not making meditation good at all. It's tremendous. It's very valuable. But what if there was more? What if in that center of your head, heart space, higher mind, quietness, present, quiet and aware, curious, a whole new array of consciousness began to present itself. We are stepping out of the third dimensional game, off the game board, into, let's call it the octave, the fifth dimensional game board. We're just starting. It's winter to spring, in a manner of speaking. And so meditation, very valuable, and it's probably time to just pause and bring it into present time. How does it work now? Is there something else that goes along with this practice that I have available now that I haven't noticed because I was not curious? I think that's how to answer that one. More to be said about that as we go forward, because just like that computer, that iPad, and that 2 gigabyte chip that has everything on it, everything, scraped the entire internet. I'll leave you with this. Scraped the entire internet, and there's all the knowledge that's on the internet. But what if consciousness has a say in this also? What if consciousness, now we're this big, consciousness that big, what if consciousness is just simply feeding us the opportunity to begin to become one with consciousness without 3D? What if consciousness is actually very much on that chip also, beginning to talk to the heart of that little kid who has got kind of a whole empty sheet to work from? No mother, father, teacher, minister telling him how the whole life works. 4 years old, he still has a spark in his eye. She still has joy in her heart. And she says hello to consciousness through technology. That's what you're watching. That's where it's going. And stay tuned, because it is going to be so remarkable. But also keep in mind, disruptive, yes. Remarkable, yes. How do you choose? Do you want to give your attention to the disruption, or do you want to simply talk to the trees on your walk and get quiet in that new form of meditation? So with that, let me leave you there. Thank you for playing. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested at all and has questions about Mastering Alchemy, please ask. We're making some very significant changes over the next 6 months that should make things more comfortable and expanded on some hand, and more focused on another. So with that said, go away, have a good day wherever you are in the world. We appreciate you. Blessings.